Hello everyone and welcome to another Reading with Barry video. This is Steve Cavanagh's book 50-50. Two sisters on trial for murder. They accuse each other. Who do you believe? This was purchased from the works. I believe I did purchase 3 for £7.50 rather than paying the £3. So £3 each was 3 for £7.50. The million copy bestseller by the aforementioned Steve Cavanagh. Trust me, it will keep you guessing until the very end, says Ian Rankin there. So as we can see, two chairs referencing the oppositional nature. And I do like the orange. Orange is a nice colour, especially on books, so that's very nice. Spine has headline. And then on the back we have 911. What's your emergency? My dad's dead. My sister Sophia killed him. Please send help. And then we have, my dad's dead, my sister Alexandra killed him, please send help. One of them is a liar and a killer, but which one? This guy is the real deal, says Lee Child. An absolute page-turner, says Shari LaPena. A great author, says Martina Cole. And a masterclass, say Guardian. Headline.co.uk, crimefiles.co.uk, and Steve Cavanagh has an X, formerly known as Twitter, handle. You can see that. Cover design by Andrew Davies. Cover image cost of /Shutterstock, and $9.99 was the original price. This is the perfect opportunity to try out my new and improved glasses, my upgraded lenses, which the optometrist tricked me into purchasing. As you herself said, you've got this just a slight difference. You do not really need them. Well, why are you peddling them so greatly then? But yeah, I can get them on with my cat. Oh, I'm still adjusting to them, so this may make it even harder for me to interpret the symbols. That's what we call letters. But yeah, I like the dark colours. They're nice. The orange does not stand out greatly, which is good because it is not supposed to or needing to contrast. It's to just carefully overlay the darker colours, and it feels like quite a formal procedure. It feels quite sophisticated. And talking about truth and lies, this is always good. I'm particularly interested in how the author defines truth and lie, and how there must be some sort of protagonist. I presume there may not be. Uncovers the truth. It could just be the two sisters headbutting each other and covering things up. That would be an interesting tale, but I imagine there are some protagonists that help to uncover things. Praise for Steve Cavanagh. So we've seen these from the back, although there are some new ones actually. If you read a thriller as good this year, it's only because you've read this one twice, says Mark Billingham. Adrian McKinsey says Steve Cavanagh must have sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads outside of Rosedale, Mississippi, in exchange for becoming one of the world's best crime writers. Steve is 5 out of 5. Michael Connolly says a dead-bang beast of a book, expertly combining his authority on the law with an absolutely great thrill ride. Books this ingenious don't come along very often. So they praised it high. Everyone has their own favourite structures and so forth, so I'm trying to keep open-minded, not to get too excited, not to focus on a particular outcome, because being an author myself, and I have been one since I was a child, I've had that author's mindset and a great imagination. It is easy to it's so easy to imagine such and such happening in a certain way, and then you start creating your own novel while still reading, and then whatever ends up happening, you're disappointed, not because it is not what you were expecting as such, but just because it is so it ends up being something simpler quite often, and you were over-analysing, or just because you were activating your author's mindset and just writing a book yourself. Ruth Rare, a brilliant, twisty, ingeniously constructed puzzle. SGI Holiday, most curious name. Eddie Flynn is fast becoming one of my favourite fictional heroes, and Cavanagh one of my favourite thriller writers. And Claire McIntosh, finally, says, smart and original, a belter of a book. Oh gosh, we have even more. Steady on. How much did you pay these people? Heather Dolan, Steve Cavanagh stands head and shoulders above the competition with his skillfully plotted, action-packed and big-hearted Eddie Flynn novels. Highly intelligent, twist-laden and absolutely unpotsdownable. Real Dean says a fantastic standalone thriller, punchy, ridiculously gripping, fast-paced, clever, beautifully plotted and incredibly fun to read. He's done it again, superb. Luca Vest says a fantastic read, guaranteed to be one of the big books of 2019. You won't be able to put this down. It's about time we found out the truth about J.T. LaBeau. So 2019. So we will see the copyright page in a moment for this edition. But that's curious because the works, they do not normally keep books on the shelf for that long. But anyway, we'll look at that in a moment. C.L. Taylor, brilliant and devilishly twisty and turny. Erin Kelly, genius plotting from a criminal mastermind. C.J. Tudor, most excellent thriller, just as good as everyone says. Top stuff. Mark Edwards, a corkscrewing roller coaster of thrills, switchbacks, loopy-loops, and screaming good fun. Add it to your wish list. So this one's standing out. But will the author deliver? And they may deliver in their own way, but again, you can become fixated on a certain expression of the deliverance, the clues, the loop-the-loops, the thrills. So I'm trying not to fill in the blanks. Right now, everything is a blank because we have not even started chapter 1. But Mark Edwards has a promising quote for us. Or rather, the book has a promising quote from Mark Edwards. Steve Cavanagh sold over 1 million copies of his novels in the UK alone. His 9 books have all been nominated for major awards and many are international bestsellers. You can find out more from his website, stevecavanaghauthor.com. And he has an Instagram as well, judging by that logo. And also by Steve Cavanagh, The Defence, The Cross, which is a novella, The Plea, The Lie, 13, Twisted, 50-50, which of course is this one, The Devil's Advocate, The Accomplice, and Kill for Me, Kill for You. It's curious. And then we have the bold writing, the headline, logo. Okay, copyright Steve Cavanagh 2020. Okay, this paperback edition published in 2024. That makes a bit more sense. I'm sure this was one of the books I purchased from the works this year. But maybe I do sometimes hold on to books a bit longer. Or they were just late getting copies, maybe. But anyway, of course, we have the ISBN, copies available from the British Library as per law, Headline Publishing Group, headline.co.uk, and Hachette.co.uk. Okay, all good. Now, the dedication to Luca Vest, in thanks and admiration for being my pod bro, for inspiring me, for writing great books that entertain me, and for making me soar with laughter. Thanks for all the goats. That was a very specific dedication. I'm sure between the two of them that makes complete sense, but I'm very curious about what all of that is all about, but that's very nice anyway. Dedications are very important. Okay, so we start with January, Eddie. For a trial lawyer, there are 2 words in the English language that terrify us more than any other. These 2 words stared back at me from my phone. They had come through by text message seconds ago. They're back. The jury had been out for all of 48 minutes. There's a lot you can do in 48 minutes. You can have lunch, you can change the oil in your car, you can probably even watch an episode of a TV show. But one thing you can't do in 48 minutes is come to a fair and balanced verdict in the most complex murder trial in the history of New York City. That's not possible. It was probably a question from the jury, I thought. This isn't the verdict. It can't be. Across the street on the corner of Lafayette is the Quarter Cafe. From the outside it looks inviting. Inside it's coffee and breakfast sandwiches on plastic tables and chairs. Usually 3 or more lawyers call their asses on those chairs. You can always tell the ones who are rated on a jury. They can't eat. They can't sit still. They unnerved the place like a guy sitting there with a machete on his lap. I used to go there when I was waiting on a verdict, but the sight of another lawyer in jury limbo is enough to put anyone off the coffee in the Corte Cafe, and the coffee is good. So instead of chewing on the furniture, I grabbed a coffee to go and headed out to walk the square. I don't know how many times I've walked Foley Square. My record is 3 days. That's how long a jury took to acquit one of my clients, and I damn near burrowed a trench into the sidewalk with my heels. This time I had only just stepped out of the Corte Cafe, coffee in hand, when I got the text. I dumped the Go Cup, crossed the street, and made my way around the corner to the Manhattan Criminal Courts building. The stars and stripes flew from a flagpole 30 feet above the entrance doors. It was an old flag. High winds, rain, and time had not been kind. Its colours had faded, and the flag was torn almost in two. Some sections of stars had unravelled and were lost in the winds. Huge threads billowed outwards from the red and white stripes, almost reaching to the paving below. There was money to replace it. Times were hard and only getting harder, but the flag was usually kept pristine even if the roof was leaking. I thought they should keep this old flag. The sun-bleached colours, rips and tears somehow seemed appropriate in these times. I could only guess the justices felt the same way. With children in cages at the border, the stars and stripes had lost their lustre for some. I'd never known my country so divided. A raven perched on the end of the flagpole, a large black bird with a long beak and sharp claws. The first ravens to return to New York City were spotted back in 2016. Normally found upstate, no one knew why they had come back. They made their nests in the high corners of bridges and overpasses, sometimes even telephone or electrical towers. They fed on garbage and the dead things that curled up in the corners of alleyways all over the city. As I passed beneath the raven, it let out a sound. Croak, croak. I didn't know if it was a greeting or a warning. Whatever it was, it unsettled me. Before I took this case, I didn't believe in evil. Up to that point in my life, I'd met and fought with men and women who did evil things, but I put it down to purely human weaknesses, greed, lust, rage, or desire. Some people were sick too, in the head. You could say they weren't responsible for their terrible crimes. As I was raised past security in the court building lobby, I couldn't stop these thoughts. They invaded my mind, poisoning it. Each thought was another drop of blood in a cool glass of water. It doesn't take long before all you can see is red. Most killers I'd come across, I could make a stab at some kind of explanation for their behaviour, something in their past or their psychology that held the key to their reasoning and criminal behaviour. I was always able to rationalise it. This time, there was no easy explanation, no key. This one I couldn't rationalise, not really. There was something dark at the heart of this case, something evil, and I had felt its touch. It had hung over this case like the ravens hanging over the city, watching, waiting, then swooping down to kill with a sharp claw and razor bill, dark and black, fast and deadly. There was no other way to describe it, no better word for it. People can be good. There is such a thing as a good person. Someone who does good things because they enjoy it. Why then can't the opposite be true? Why can't a person just be evil because they enjoy it? I hadn't thought of it that way before, but now I could see the sense. Evil is real. It lives in dark places and it can consume a human being like a cancer. So many had died, and perhaps more would die before the end. When I was a kid growing up in a small cold house in Brooklyn, my mum told me there was no such thing as monsters. The stories I'd read as a kid about monsters and witches and taking children away from their parents into the forest, well, she said they were just fairy tales. There are no monsters, she said. She was wrong. The criminal courts building elevators were old and painfully slow. They took me to my floor. I got out and walked the corridor to the courtroom, following everyone else inside. I took my seat at the defense table next to my client. After the huge audience was seated, the doors were closed. The judge was already ensconced on the bench. A hush fell as the jury filed in. They had already given the paperwork to the clerk, paperwork they'd completed in the jury room. My client tried to say something, but I didn't hear her clearly. I couldn't. Blood roared in my ears. I was a pretty good judge of which way a jury would fall. I could call it, and I was right every single damn time. I knew before I took on a case whether my client was guilty. I spent many years as a con artist before I turned those skills into law practice, with little adjustment. Conning a drug dealer out of 200 grand isn't a kick in the arse away from conning a jury into bringing home the right verdict. Innocent people went to jail all the time, but it's not on my watch. Not anymore. I'd learned, in bars, in diners, on the streets, how to read people. I was good at it. So when it came to applying my trade in the courtroom, I knew whether my client was guilty from the first meeting, and if they were guilty but wanted to maintain their innocence in court, I wished them good luck and waved them goodbye. I'd been down that path years ago, and the cost was too great to bear. I'd ignored my guts, let my client walk. He was guilty and I'd turned him loose. He hurt someone, so I hurt him. In some ways, I was still paying for that mistake. No one is infallible. Everyone can be conned, even me. Reading clients and reading juries was my bag. This case wasn't normal. There was nothing remotely normal about it. This was the first verdict that I couldn't call. I was too close to it. In my mind, it was an even split. The verdicts may as well come down to a coin toss, a 50-50. I knew what I wanted to happen. I now knew who the killer was. I just didn't know if the jury would see it. I was jury blind, and I was tired. I hadn't slept in weeks, not since that dark red night. The clerk stood and addressed the jury foreman. In these matters, have you reached verdicts upon which you are all agreed? Asked the clerk. We have, said the jury foreman. And then it leads on to part one, sisters, 3 months earlier, where we should see something about the relationship between the sisters, one would imagine. So that was an interesting start, quite a brief start, very brief, but we're just setting things up. So jumping straight into the trial, as he says, it could be 50-50, and that some would call it a name drop of the title, but it is not really a name drop because the author purposely went for such a common title. It'd be not impossible at all to avoid speaking it, but it fits in so naturally, using 50-50 to highlight, I suppose, how I keep going to say that they're twins. They're not twins, are they? But they are sisters. So you could say they are two parts of the same puzzle. 50% is one part of the puzzle, 50% is the other part. They are joined at the hip in a sense. Now, legally speaking, we are told, of course, there could be twists if we cannot trust the information where the author is guiding us. We are told that one sister is guilty and one is not, but maybe it is not so simple. Maybe there's a conspiracy, a betrayal. Maybe someone else murdered. Maybe the person's not really dead. There are so many avenues one could explore with the conjecturing and whatnot, the internal debating and so forth. Hopefully it holds up and there is something clever, something that just comes out of nowhere, but at the same time you can look back and realise, the wall was pretty much pulled right over my head. There were clues all along, so that would be interesting. The lawyer says he is good at reading people, which is, I think I said in the previous video, not this video, I think it was a video I was making a moment ago, that I'm very good at reading people. So I can relate to that because it is a survival skill. Although we often feel we should not trust our instinct because people, particularly abusive people, wear you down and try to have you doubt yourself. If you are able to read people, and as he says, no one is infallible, but you do get a good sense, you can avoid so much, theoretically anyway, because there are other things involved, like even talking about landlords, for instance. You may get a sense that a landlord is dodgy, you can read straight away, so things are not adding up, but also you need somewhere to live, so you may feel you have to take that property anyway. So obviously there are practical considerations, but you can at least begin to guard yourself. So as a lawyer, well, he started out by saying that he was a drug dealer, or he was conning drug dealers or something, which I was not expecting, to be honest, because maybe the bar system is quite different in the United States, but how do you become a jury lawyer with maybe he was never caught for a drug, I'm not sure. I'm sure some of these details will be revealed, but I'm a bit confused about. Maybe he's not really a lawyer. Maybe this is a figment of his imagination. Maybe this is a dream the drug dealer is having, and this is all a subworld in his dream. He wants to be a lawyer because his guilty conscience is telling him to abandon this lifestyle. Because otherwise, how does he operate? How does he practice as a lawyer? Maybe it happened decades ago, and now he's allowed to. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, it definitely sounds interesting enough. I will definitely read some more. I might start reading it in a week or so. I have started reading The Philosophical Baby, and that's a very small book. I will read some more tonight if I get time, and then I may jump onto this, which promises to be quite psychological as well. I'm not expecting it to be intensely psychological, sadly. I think there will just be a brief overview. So often books and they'll say things are deeply psychological, and from their perspective, they may be saying the truth. It's accurate. But from my perspective, it is not really intimately psychological. It just it's a bit of a glazing, but that can still be good. I'm hoping there will not be too much. Well, again, I do not know a great deal about the author. He can surprise me. It is nice to be surprised. But my instinct is to say I hope there will not be too much roaring between the two sisters, whether through flashbacks or in the present or in the courtroom, so it does not descend into an episode of EastEnders, which some people like. That is why some people like EastEnders, but we do not want it to be too much of, not even a shouting match as such, but too much of a she said this, the other she is saying that's the other she did this. You want it to be a bit more, a bit more drawn out. I mean, it's a very small book, so it would not take long to read. So I'm hoping he is on it with a pacing just over 300 pages, so a very small book. Hopefully the pacing is good. I mean, in a single chapter on a single page, you can carefully summarize things without feeling you're rushing. It is good to mix up the speed from chapter to chapter. Sometimes you can have this sort of sub-chapter, additional chapters as anyway, after these events, such and such happened, and then carefully get back to the previous style of writing in preparation for the next chapter. I think it will be interesting. It will have some interesting things. I just hope that the middle and the ending really provide. I hope especially given how it is quite a short book, I hope that the beginning is not too dragged out. I mean, you can. Excuse my rumbly stomach. You can unleash certain details early on, but I suppose I'd not to. Again, he may surprise me. That's fine. He might do a good job, but my instinct says to not have too much of a beginning. I feel a want for just jumping into the middle, where there's no clear distinction between beginning and middle. Maybe between middle and end, but. Let us just jump into the middle and learn details about the sisters as we go. But who knows, we'll see. My stomach is rumbling, distracting me, you can probably hear. So I'm going to go and see how my food is cooking, how it is doing. If I get time to do another reading with Barry video today, I will, because do you know what? It's afternoon and it is still cold and wet. It was pouring earlier, but the temperature has improved and the brightness has slightly improved, so I feel like filming hours have been extended. The hours with which we can film are improving slightly, so but probably tomorrow will be the next opportunity, so I will see you then probably.